I must admit, I thought it would probably happen, but I can't believe it did. It's just so flippin' predictable. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, after the Springboks win on Friday night against the All Blacks at Twickenham, I knew inevitably we're going to have a repeat of what happened after the 2019 World Cup final. Suddenly, half the rugby world's going to stand up and say, no ways, no ways, you can't do that anymore. And I'm referring to obviously the 7-1 bench split. The Boks were obviously necessitated into it by a late injury to Vili Leroux, and they decided to go with Kwagga Smith as almost the Swiss Army knife option. Yeah, the guy can fit in anywhere. And it worked for them. It worked for them. They didn't get... There's obviously a certain amount of risk in the thing. But yeah, and will it happen again? Well, listen, let me first let you know what Jacques Nienaber said afterwards. It doesn't sound like it's a thing that they're going to be using again, but it's caused so much controversy now, and we'll get to that in a second, that I think we should address it. So this is what Jacques Nienaber said.
Can I just ask about the 7-1 bench split? I think you might have been asked about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were slightly pushed into it this evening due to injury, but is it something, given how destructive your pack was tonight, is it something that we might see voluntarily in France?
Yeah, I think like you said tonight, it was Billy picked up a little bit of an eagle, and we felt we didn't want to risk him for this game, and so there's always a couple of guys that's on standby. The rest of the guys had a big flogging during the week, the non-playing squad, because obviously we wanted to end on a Friday where everybody had as much exposure from a conditioning point of view, so that we all go into the next 2 weeks almost on par. And hence that's why we felt, yes, we don't want to risk that. And going forward, will we go? I think the least risk in terms of a bench covering multiple options is probably a 5-3. I think it's fair to say that the majority will know that's the least risk, and you cover the most positions in that. 6-2 is more risk, like we've seen before, and then obviously a 7-1 is a big risk. I mean, we were fortunate tonight that we didn't get any backline injuries, but I mean, it is something that we not the 7-1, something that if we go with a 6-2, there is certain forwards that have fulfilled certain roles in backline play, because obviously you can go there. I think France is the same. When we played against them down in Marseille, Waki played wing, am I right? No. Makulu. Where he went to wing. He was a forward. So I think we've trained that scenarios with all the cards and the yellow cards that goes around. So it is something that we have dabbed into, but I mean not the 7-1, the make players being able to fulfill multiple positions.
So from that, I mean, I just thought, after the last World Cup, what happened, we saw after the South Africans used the bomb squad, that suddenly there was this thought of, the rules need to be changed, the rules on substitutions need to be changed, all these things that should need to happen, because suddenly the box dominance and the way they're playing around with the rules doesn't quite work for certain people, and it's rather unfortunate because, firstly, as a South African, we pride ourselves on our pack, on the way they do and the way they can obviously dominate. And rugby is a game of domination at the end of the day. So to me, it's rather unfortunate that you have all these people bleating now, because I think what the Boks did by trying a 7-1 bench is ludicrous. It's unimaginable. It's something that I can understand people are sort of surprised at. That was my take when I heard the news. I was surprised. I thought, geez, that's a hell of a risk, and it comes with a lot of risk. But now, so on a number of articles have already been calling for the Boks, for World Rugby for intervention. That you have to say that it's going to be three backs or two backs in a substitute. But it's a bit of a ridiculous argument, because if you're willing to take that risk, then surely you should get the reward. And if things go wrong, then it's on you that you've taken that risk, and you haven't sort of factored in for that, Yeah, anything can go wrong. The Box could have got easily 2 injuries in a game, and then they would have been in trouble. Then you'd have fatigued players staying out on the field that maybe shouldn't have been fatigued and would have been replaced because you've decided to go with that. But I think it's the sight of the Box changing all 7 of their 7 forwards at the same time, which really sort of riled people up. I mean, that Bokpak was in immense form. They were dominant, and I know there's a lot of negativity coming from New Zealand about not only their performance, but if you listen to some of their pundits, that and we'll get to that also in this video, but everybody was wrong except the All Blacks, it looks like, and everybody sort of, the whole world conspired. The TMO, the bunker guy, how he conspired about everything, everybody conspired against the All Blacks to make them lose that game, except themselves, which is a bit ridiculous. So yeah, let's start into it. I'm going to just show you this clip from Matt Williams on Off the Ball. Now Matt is supposedly a pundit. I'm not a big fan of Matt, I'll be very honest. He is a guy who was a mediocre Waratahs coach. He coached Leinster for a while, and then was Scotland's coach, where he had a record of 3 wins out of 17 games. When they played the Springboks, he lost 45-10. He unfortunately is a guy that gets around in the media quite a bit, and everybody's got their right to say they say, but I just think this is a ridiculous take. And so listen to it and watch it, and you see if you tell me now. Watch it and then we'll check.
But it does concern you, especially when you look at the way the South Africans are just abusing the bench at the moment. That was supposedly, the bench came in, just so your listeners, that was all for safety reasons, so that people didn't come on to positions they weren't trained for, so we didn't have injuries. We weren't putting back rowers in the front row. Everything was done for a reason. They played 7 off the bench. Like 7 forwards. Really? Seriously? And World Rugby's just got to act on this. And all the way you fix it is you say you must have 3 recognised backs on your bench, and that stops it. But right now, South Africa just changed the whole team, the whole pack. Now, if they do that and we're not up to scratch, we've got some players, they'll be found out. And so it's obvious. South Africa's tactics are obvious now, what they're going to do, and we have to be ready for it.
So first of all, to call what they're doing is abusing the laws is ridiculous. If something's within the law and you find a loophole in any sport in exploiting it, that's good on you. That's what innovation is. That's how things change the worldwide. If you find a loophole, if you disrupt the game in some way, just as if you disrupt business or anything else in the world, that's good for you. And you either adapt or you die. That's how innovation works. Now, the Boks have said publicly that they're not planning to use this again, but the fact that they tried it and are sort of pioneers in this field is same as with the 6-2, has now riled up a lot of people. And I think, I'm sorry, but Matt Williams, I don't know, anybody who takes that take as a serious one is a bit ridiculous. Interestingly enough, I see there's a thread on Twitter from Professor Ross Tucker, who argues that more substitutions actually makes injuries go down in the game, and I think it's worth a read. You can have a look for it on Twitter under his name. Very scientific way of looking at things. I'm not a sports scientist, so I've got no reason to doubt his views, and I've dealt with Ross a lot. And he's a great guy, and he's got some views I disagree with, and he's got a lot of views which he holds quite strongly. But I think he is right in this case that the reason for substitutions, you don't have players getting injured. But if you're talking about the whole argument seems to be that fatigued players come up against players who are fresh. Well, you know what? Each team's got the same set of rules. You can also select 7 forwards. The All Blacks selected 6 forwards against the Boks. It was their choice. It didn't really help at the end of the day. The Boks were so dominant in that game. And it's quite interesting. Listen, I mean, I'm all for fans having their opinions, and I'm all for people having their opinions, pundits doing that, but this is rather ridiculous. Every time the Boks sort of do something well, there seems to be some sort of outcry. Let's change the laws. Where, I think if teams do that, they run the risk of being massively you can just imagine massively short on the outside there, because imagine you have 7 forwards and you get 2 injuries and you have to put a forward on wing playing against international wings. Of course, if it has to be backline, consider this. The Boks have got some big backline players. They can easily select a Damon de Lende or an Andre Esthuizen as a flanker. That could easily happen on the bench. Nothing stopping them to do that. Will there be an outcry about that? Who knows? It's all a storm in a teacup. It's rather ridiculous if you ask me. But that wasn't the only ridiculous take that I had to deal with, or we all have to deal with at the moment. The other one came from The Breakdown, which is a show I normally watch, and I quite enjoy some of the New Zealand pundits. And I think a lot of New Zealanders who've commented on videos on my channel have been rather sort of taking it in their stride, just like no one's crowing from the Springboks side. I think we all know it means nothing for the World Cup, but on the day the Boks were better, just as in Auckland the All Blacks were a lot better than the Boks, especially in those 20 minutes. And that won them the game. So, to come back now after a game and complain about everything, and just look at this take from Jeff Wilson, who I must admit, Justin Marshall gave a much more, I suppose, balanced view on my mate Martin Devlin's show in New Zealand. So, I'll play you the first one. Listen to this from Jeff Wilson first of all.
Yeah, well, the great thing is for me, Paddy, though, we know exactly that was the best that the Springboks can play. That's it. We know that we can play so much better, and there's not another team in this competition coming forward that we can anticipate that will play like that. Yeah.
And now this one from Justin Marshall, and you decide, whose take is probably a bit more balanced.
Yeah, I was really surprised, to be honest, mate, that the All Blacks struggled the way that they did. They pretty much got ambushed by a side that came out super physical, super committed, was massively positive, like I think I said during the commentary that Sia Kolisi turned down many kicking opportunities to try and accumulate points, which sometimes South Africa tend to do, to go for more. And eventually that led to obviously yellow, red cards, and the All Blacks just not being able to maintain the intensity that South Africa brought to the game. I think we've spoken for the last, 3 weeks, mate, where I've been very adamant that we needed to get our number one side out there and needed to go out and flex our muscles and make a statement about intent of Rugby World Cup. Credit to Ian Foster. He named a full strength side to a degree, but they just weren't up for it. They just mentally weren't there, and I can't understand why.
According to Jeff, it was everybody's fault. It was the TMO, the bunker. There was everything going wrong, except nobody blamed the All Blacks themselves. And for Jeff to carry on about the South Africans, can't play any better. I think the Boks can probably play better, and the problem is the Boks can play exceptionally well and dominate other teams if they get their forward play right. I think the All Blacks, while they don't mention it, have got a certain problem, which I mentioned in the video the other day, of pressure. If you look at the teams that put pressure and cut off their oxygen, Ireland did it, France did it, England did it in the second half at Twickenham last year. And when they're under pressure like that, this All Black team seems to struggle. They're still a bloody good team, don't get me wrong. They're still a team that can easily rectify those wrongs as well. I haven't written them off, and if you watch that video I did on where the All Blacks stand right now, you'll see those are pretty much my views. So it's just weird. It's suddenly everybody else's fault except the All Blacks. And I think there's times I normally enjoy the pundits discussions there, but there's times where you have to look at yourself and say, listen, we were beaten fair and square. Not to say it was because of 14 men, it was because of 13 men, because of the TMO, all these things. Doesn't really fly in, because if your team was performing and they weren't under pressure, they wouldn't have given away so many penalties. And if they didn't give away so many penalties, there wouldn't have been cards. So if there wasn't, that sort of, by saying it's because we played against 14 or played 13 men at times, that's what pressure does to you. And if a team can put pressure onto you, you lose players. That's the nature of the game. It's all within the rules at the moment. So, it's a bit of a nonsensical argument to me. But, I think I'm going to leave you with the wise words of one Yoda in Star Wars. And, before you, just let me know what you think of these takes. Do you think the laws need to be changed? Do you think the Boks have done anything wrong? I don't think so. And what do you say about the New Zealand pundits' views from Jeff Wilson? I think it's rather ridiculous. Anyway, but that's my take of it, my little rant. So I'm now done. I'll leave you with the wise words of Yoda, which sums up my feeling of the rest of the rugby world after watching the Boks on Friday night.
I sense much fear in you.